'cause we're in it together. We're in it together. If you get off track, I got your back. Remember, oh yeah, we're in this together.
All right, welcome to our live chat today. My name is Craig Jackson, Market Category Lead with Bose Professional, and we're going to actually spend some time today talking about not only our new L1 Pro family, but really a common question that we've had with our customers of the differences between the L1 Legacy system and the L1 Pro family. And today I have a couple of special guests with me. First, Craig Small. Craig Small is the product manager that's been working and leading the effort to create the L1 Pro family for the better part of a couple of years. And he's going to be part of our panel today. And also we have Eliot Lewis. We're really thrilled to have Eliot Lewis. Those of you that don't know Eliot, Eliot is an amazing solo artist. He's also a multi-instrumentalist. He is part of the Daryl Hall and John Oates band, touring member of that band. He's also been part of the Average White Band and has performed with many, many other artists through his very long career. And we're just thrilled to have Eliot be part of the inner circle in being a beta tester for the L1 Pro family, as well as just being a long user of the L1 product. So we invited Eliot here today because he's really got the perspective of having used the older stuff and then the newer stuff. So we're going to really leverage him in terms of explaining, what the experiential differences are for him as an end user. And so really we have our family of products, which consists of 5 new products. So we have our L1 Pro 8, which is our most compact L1 Pro system, our L1 Pro 16, which is sort of the next level up in balance of portability and power. And it's a whole new form factor in that middle ground. And then we have our flagship L1 Pro 32, which is our most advanced system, an advancement even over the flagship L1 Model 2. And we combine that with either a sub 1 or a sub 2, and you can really make a system that really kind of meets your requirements from portability to power with additional bass. And all of these systems can be app controlled with the L1 Mix app for one seamless experience. And so with that, I maybe want to kick it over to Craig Small to say a few words as we get into this discussion today.
Cool. Thanks, Craig. It's great to be here. Eliot, thanks for joining us today. We'll lean on you for some anecdotal kind of cool stories about using your L1 and other systems as well. So we should start with the first member of the product family, which is the L1 Pro 8. So I'll take you guys over here. So I'm at this facility is called the Experience Center here at Bose. So this, you can see there's a stage behind me. We've got some F1s as well as some marina matches mounted to the rigging So we have a real live experience room here where we can come and listen and also show to our dealers what it is that we're working on and test for ourselves as well in a really live space. So from left to right, we've got the L1 Pro 8 system versus an L1 Compact. We've got the Pro 16 versus a 1S, and then slightly out of the frame, but I'm going to tilt the camera later so when we get to it, is the L1 model, L1 Pro 32 with sub 1 and sub 2 versus an L1 Model 2 with a B2 base module. So starting with the L1 Pro 8, effectively the L1 Pro 8 is a replacement for the L1 Compact, even though the L1 Compact is still available for purchase. That used to be a $999 retail price point. That is now $899 with the addition of the L1 Pro 8, which retails at $1199. So it's been a long time coming, as Craig alluded to. So it's time for an upgrade for the L1 Compact. Starting off with the array, we've got 8 drivers in the mid-high array versus 6 in the Compact. Both arrays have a C-shaped configuration. So this gives us about 40 degrees of vertical coverage. They both give us the same 180 degrees of horizontal coverage. For subwoofers, we've got an 8-inch subwoofer in the L1 Compact versus a 7x13-inch in the L1 Pro 8. This, as we've talked about in all of our marketing materials, as well as a lot of videos that some of you folks have seen, this gives us a surface area that rivals a 12-inch driver. So we've packed a lot of low end into a pretty small package. Eliot, I know you're most experienced or most familiar with the Sub 1, which uses the same 7x13-inch racetrack. What are your thoughts on that so far after having used it for a while?
For my needs, it's been perfect, really, and partly I think the Sub 1 is working out great for me because the kind of music I'm doing is is more aligned with like classic rock, where there's not giants amount of low end. I think if I were doing more DJing stuff or dance music, the Sub 2 would be great, but the Sub 2 is actually more than I think I need. It's working out great. The whole system as a whole has been amazing so far.
Awesome. So we're going to lean on you heavy when we get to the Pro 32 comparison.
Yeah.
But just to go to my original point, this 7x13-inch racetrack sub is the same that is used in a Sub 1. Sub 1 just has more acoustic volume, so we're able to tune a little bit lower. And also got a little bit more powerful amplifier so we can get that bass a little bit louder and longer. So as far as the carrying experience, we've got 3 pieces. We've got the mid-high array, we've got an extension, and the power stand, which contains the subwoofer, as opposed to 4 pieces of the compact array. We've got the mid-high array, and we've got 2 extensions, and then the power stand or mid-high array. You'll notice that the power stand, the bottom extension goes through the power stand and sort of obstructs the subwoofer. It doesn't necessarily impede the performance, but we've gone away from that with a new design. You can see the extension stops where the subwoofer begins. Those low frequencies are omnidirectional and they're not necessarily impeded by this thin piece of plastic that's in front of it, but nonetheless, we felt that was an improvement that we needed to make. The total weight of the system, with the improved performance, we are a little bit heavier. We're at 39 pounds versus 29 pounds of a compact. And then that whole carrying experience, you combine the weight plus the number of pieces, we believe that we've just really improved this carrying experience. The main benefit, in addition to performance of the racetrack, is that center of gravity, where because it's such a slim package, it allows us to lift it up and just easily carry it from vehicle to venue. How's your loading and unloading been, Eliot? How's your loading and unloading been, Eliot, with the new systems?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
So I
Your
think
loading and unloading, how?
Yeah, the first thing that I noticed about my system, the Pro 32 I'm using with the Sub 1, is is the weight difference, the weight reduction. It was really one of the first things I noticed, even before I plugged it in, of course. And that was pretty significant. And then when I, unpacked the thing, and I was like, wow, this is made as robustly as the original system was, yet it's quite a bit lighter. So, I mean, for guys like me that are using this system in a solo context, um, the portability and the weight reduction really come in handy. Because we're typically doing these gigs on our own, where we don't necessarily have techs setting this stuff up for us. So the weight reduction, the portability really come in handy.
So
Awesome.
Elliot, on
Thanks,
your
Elliot.
list of things is portable. Well, tell me how portability ranks for you, because I think that's the balance that we try to work on at Bose, is giving you the performance, but at the same time giving you the portability so that you can get to the gig, you can get set up, in a relatively easy way, as opposed to having something that performs great but is just not very portable. How do you kind of weigh those things as a professional touring musician?
It's important for this application for sure, but for me, absolutely sound quality is paramount. So the portability can be there, and the weight reduction is great. That makes our life easier. But unless the sound quality is there, then the portability doesn't matter. And I think this is an incredible example of having all of that in one unit.
Great. Yeah.
Awesome. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Cool. I'll just continue on with some of the performance numbers. Just a note to our producers who are running the slides there, if we could advance one slide. So the performance has been improved with the L1 Pro 8 versus a compact, particularly with SPL and bandwidth. We've got 112 dB of continuous SPL and 118 peak versus 106 and 112 of a compact, or 6 dB louder. For bandwidth, we are tuned down to 45 hertz as opposed to 65 hertz. So that's quite an extension of low frequency bandwidth. That's, contributing factors are the number of drivers in our mid-high array, as well as the subwoofer, but also the amplification that we're using. We've got 300 watts of total amplification in the Pro 8 versus 130 of a compact. One other performance note is the lower crossover of the Pro 8, where we're at 200 hertz versus 400 hertz in a compact. What that does is that really helps to isolate the low frequency instruments such as kick drum and bass guitar, left-hand keyboard parts. It really keeps them in the subwoofer so that everything else, guitar, vocals, other instruments, can emanate from the array. So we're really optimizing what those drivers are good at reproducing. What happens when your crossover is a little bit too high is that sometimes you get a little vocal in your sub, you get a little guitar in your sub, which isn't necessarily the end of the world, but it can lead to a little less clarity than might be desired. So next is the mixer. As you can see on your screen, we have quite a bit of difference in the two mixing panels. We've got 3 channels with clear delineation versus 2 channels on the L1 compact. We've got adjustable volume, treble, bass, and reverb, combo input jacks, channel mutes, phantom power on channels 1 and 2. And then we also have Bluetooth streaming, which we do not have on the L1 compact. We've got a full bandwidth line out via XLR versus just the 1/4 inch, and then the RCAs. And we've also got a tone match port, so users can connect a T4 or T8S mixer. And then, of course, we've got a system EQ here, which helps to optimize for live music, for recorded music if you're a mobile DJ, and also for public speaking. So huge difference in the I/O panel. And as far as user options, how are you enjoying the I/O panel on your Pro 32, Eliot?
I love it. I love the design. I love the visibility of the controls. The backlit LEDs on the volume controls are really, really great. Just because you can see at a gig so easily and quickly where you're at. So visually, it's great. And yeah, there's some more options. I love the Bluetooth. That's really come in handy. I think a lot of guys like me that are playing some smaller places, and we're going to do maybe a couple of sets. We don't always want to rely on the venue to queue up a song list. So the Bluetooth feature has been great. I can always have sort of a playlist to hit it during a break. So yeah, I love it.
Awesome. Those LEDs, I should add, are always in sync with L1 Mix, which is a control app that connects via Bluetooth. So if I am on stage, rather than having to walk over to the unit to adjust my volume or EQ, I can simply just grab my tablet that maybe is mounted to a mic stand or a phone in my back pocket and adjust accordingly. Those LEDs are always in sync with the adjustments that I make in the app, as well as easily visible on a dimly lit stage, let's say, as you kind of alluded to, Eliot.
Yeah, and I've just I think maybe the last show I did with the system, I use the app, the Mix app, and it's great because typically I have a wireless guitar system, so I'm able to kind of roam the venue area that I'm performing in and kind of do a check and seeing what the coverage is and whether or not I need to make any EQ adjustments. So far, I haven't actually had to make any EQ adjustments. Amazingly, the mixes I do. I'm doing a combination of like backing tracks and looping, live looping, and my mixes have amazingly translated with almost no need for EQ so far. So,
Awesome.
Eliot,
yeah.
can you tell us a little bit more of like what you're plugging in, like to your sources? And I
Yeah.
know you do a lot with like looping and backing tracks and things like that. I've seen a lot of stuff. You post some cool stuff on social media of building all these tracks up and whatnot. How are you using
Yeah.
the I/O with the L1 systems?
Yeah, so I'm using a T4S, which I love, and if I need, depends on the setup and presentation I'm doing. But typically, like I said, I'm doing a combination of some backing tracks and live looping. So I do it a couple of different ways, either with a keyboard or I do it with a drum pad, and I'm looping my guitar through that, singing live, of course, building up a track and arrangement. So everything is pre-mixed into the T4S, and straight into the Pro 32 now. And I think one of the first things that really struck me about this new unit was the power difference. So far, the venues, like I think the first venue I used the Pro 32 in was an outside venue, and I probably had about 150 to 200 people there. So typically, I would go to the master on my Pro 32 and put it about noon, put about halfway. But I found on my T4S, I was only getting it up to about 25%, and that was like really rocking this venue. It was like plenty of level. So having that extra power really was one of the most satisfying things. Just having all that extra headroom to work with.
Great.
That's great.
And so, yeah, everything that I'm using and I'm plugging into, everything is direct. Like I'm using guitar modeling, direct pedals right into the mixer, into the Pro 32.
So just two more points on the L1 Pro 8. What's included in the box: the mid-high array, the extension, the power stand, the power cable, as well as a carry bag for the array and the extension. You can buy a slipcover separately. And also a step up from the L1 Compact are the accessories that we have available. You can purchase a system carry bag for the L1 Pro 8, which allows users to put everything into a single vessel for just one-handed loading from vehicle to venue and then back out at night. So it's a padded case that's great for storage, as well as loading, unloading, and also offers some great protection for your systems. So from here, Craig, we should move on to the L1 Pro 16.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got, I've got an L1 Pro 16 here compared to an L1 Model S and a B1 base module. Now, disclaimer up front, because the Pro 16 has a 10 by 18 inch, a more relative performance comparison would be a 1S with a B2 base module, but we're going to start here because of the relative price point. As of a couple of months ago, users would pay $17.99 for a 1S plus a B1 base module, which is the same retail price point as a L1 Pro 16. So from that kind of angle, we're going to compare these two systems. Again, starting with the array, we've got 16 mid-high array drivers in the L1 Pro 16 in a J shape, as opposed to 12 2¼ drivers versus 2-inch drivers. You'll notice there's quite a difference in the thickness of the array drivers. So as a result, this is just much more lighter and a lot more portable. The 12 drivers in the 1S are in a straight configuration, as opposed to the J shape, which is good for an elevated stage as well as being on the floor. So you get about 30 degrees of vertical coverage on the bottom and then tight, straight vertical control on the top. Comparing base modules, we've got, as I mentioned before, the 10 by 18 inch, which again, we say speaker cone surface area rivals that of a 15-inch subwoofer. So we have a really powerful system, low frequency wise, in a really small package, versus 2 5¼ drivers here in the B1. So you could argue that the B1 is more portable. However, the performance is just, it's night and day in terms of how one sounds versus the other. We've also got a huge form factor difference. This is sort of the big brother to the L1 Pro 8, as opposed to the 1S being the little brother to the Model 2. 3 pieces, the same as the Pro 8 versus 4 pieces. Mid-high array, extension, power stand, as well as subwoofer. So that's a 4-piece carry. That's going to take up a couple of hands. So quite a bit of difference there as well. Weight-wise, however, if you compare the two systems, this is about 75 pounds total carry versus about 54-ish, 53.7 pounds. So even though this is a larger subwoofer than a B1, it's the total carrying experience is much improved.
Yeah, Craig,
we have the same Bluetooth control.
I was going to add that I think the other thing that is an important factor is that we've eliminated the need to plug in a cable. So because the base is now integrated, that extra cable you had to plug in with the to connect the B1 in this case, or B2 if you were using one, it just isn't needed. So our focus was really to streamline, make it more portable, but in this case, even more powerful. And like, I think sonically, it plays a lot louder. The bass is pretty impressive with this small system, and the carry is just way more portable.
Yeah, exactly. The footprint that it takes up on stage too, just to elaborate on your point, sometimes, we get stuck in these little corners of cafes or coffee shops. I mean, it's not drastic, but there's a huge difference between, it's not drastic, meaning like this is not a ton of floor space. However, there's quite a bit of difference between this floor space and that floor space. So sometimes every little bit helps.
Yeah.
As far as performance, again, we're quite a bit louder than the previous legacy system. So we've got 118 dB continuous and 124 dB peak versus 112 and 118 respectively. So we are quite a bit louder. In terms of tuning, we say that the L1 Pro 16 goes down to 42, and that we've always said that the B1 goes down to 40. However, I would encourage you to listen to those two experiences. We have so much more volume and so much more punch from the L1 Pro 16 that it's not even a relatively close comparison between the two. This plays more in the B2 subwoofer range. And then if we, wattage, so we've got 1,000 watts, 1250 total watts. So we've got 1,000 watts dedicated to the subwoofer and 250 dedicated to the mid-high array, as opposed to 125 and 200 in the L1 1S plus a B1. 125 and 250, sorry, with the legacy systems. And then for the mixer, which is the slide that you're looking at right now, you can see it's not even close. We have the exact same I/O with all the features that we already discussed with the L1 Pro 8, as opposed to just a very simple interface, that was the point back then with the 1S, that we have a single analog input, the tone match port so you can connect, and then the bass module out for that speak-on connection, connecting to your B1s or B2s. And that's the L1 Pro 16 versus the 1S. And I'm going to walk over to my computer here for a sec and just turn this so we can see our B1 and B2 experience. How's that? So here's where we're going to lean on you, Eliot, since you have so much experience with the Pro 32 and your Sub 1. So for the sake of this same sort of apples to apples comparison, we're going to compare a Pro 32 with a Sub 2 to a Model 2 and a B2 base module. So our flagship array, flagship portable line array versus the new flagship portable line array. We've got 32 drivers, 32 2-inch drivers versus 24 2¼ inch drivers. Both are in a straight configuration so that they give us really tight vertical control on the top and the bottom. Same 180-degree coverage. The difference in the driver size really contributes to the significant reduction in the weight. Again, like the Pro 16 and the 1S, you'll notice how much thinner it is. The total weight reduction of the Pro 32 versus a Model 2 is a 60% weight reduction. So it's pretty significant when you consider the portability story.
The old system, or legacy system, if you will.
Yeah.
The first time you used the new Pro 32, I mean, tell us what that experience was like, having the legacy and then going to the new one in terms of just the portability and that experience.
Yeah, like I said, the portability, the weight reduction was really noticeable to me right away. And the legacy model was built so well. It just felt so very solid that when I set up the new unit, I thought, how can they, reduce the weight so much and keep that kind of feeling of, confidence. And it's as robust as the original system, just without the weight. And then again, having used it, the first thing I noticed was just the power increase, the level of dispersion. I know these units are typically meant to be behind a performer, and I've used them that way many times. But I've also, in some of the applications I've played in, prefer to put it off to the side of me. And amazingly, with this unit, you can have it off to the side of you if you want, given whatever situation you're in on your setting of the stage or whatever, and still feel like you're not getting like hit over the head with volume out of one side. You still have the sense of feeling the volume in the whole room, which I think is amazing. If you're at a substantial level and you can have this thing off to one side and still feel like, it's not all coming from one side, you're still getting a sense of the whole room. So, yeah, it's been amazing. And of course, always, every time I've ever played with any Bose product, I've had people come up to me and going, what is this? How is this possible? And if people that don't know, I mean, musicians are pretty savvy and they know the products pretty well, but a lot of people don't. And they're always amazed at the sound that's coming out of this cylinder looking thing. And yeah, so it's an awesome experience.
Great.
I'm glad you mentioned the power stand, Eliot.
Yeah.
Because of that 60% weight reduction, I'm sure you noticed right off the bat that we don't have these legs that kick out.
Right.
The extension legs. So we've had a couple of questions come up on various forums about the stability of the Pro 32. People are concerned that it will tip over. Because of that weight reduction, we are able to achieve our stability requirements where we tilt to a certain angle with a minimum of a 12-inch radius, as long as we're at least 15 pounds. And we achieve those requirements. So therefore, the end result is just a smaller, lighter, and much more portable power stand that gives us the same stability requirements as the product that users are used to.
One thing I noticed right away, when you look at it visually, you wonder if it's going to be as stable, and it is 100% is stable. I have no, fear of this thing not going over or anything like that. It's 100% stable. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk subwoofers. So a B2 has two 10-inch subwoofers versus the 10 by 18-inch in the Sub 2, and then the Sub 1, which would be the replacement for a B1 base module, has the 7 by 13-inch. As we mentioned before, these base modules have a little bit more acoustic volume, so we can tune them a little bit lower. They're higher. Well, the Pro 16 and the Sub 2 are each 1,000 watts, but the Sub 1 versus the Pro 8 subwoofer is a little bit higher wattage. This is the same sort of configuration as the Model 2, where you have the subwoofer that can be placed wherever you want it in relation to the power stand. You can place it on its side. You can stack subwoofers. You can have one rear firing and engage the cardioid configuration if you want to. The way that, because these are powered, we have invented this technology called submatch, which, Craig, I don't know if you want to talk about submatch at all, but this is a patented connection system that, whoops, left is left here. So it's a really robust spring-loaded collar that delivers power and audio to your Sub 1 or Sub 2.
Interesting thing to talk about, because when we were, as you know, when we were developing the products, the bar we were held to was what our legacy products did, and we knew we wanted the subwoofers to be powered, but then we had to deal with another AC connection that had to get plugged into the wall. So we thought maybe we could just combine the power and the digital audio into one cable and create sort of this new unique approach to a single cable to power a powered sub. That was harder than it sounded, because there's a lot of other technical issues you have to overcome to get all those things to live in one cable and have it be a good customer experience. But the development team really focused on how do you meet that requirement of keep the cable count the same, keep the setup as good or better as the existing L1 Model 2, and give the customer this single cable experience. And then at the same time, give someone a backup that if the cable failed or you lost the cable or forgot it, you could still use a conventional IEC cord and an analog connection to get you plugged in. I don't think, Craig, we can see the bottom where submatch is in your view, but that's the idea, is that there's a submatch via your Pro 32. That in your submatch gets connected to that. You can power up to 2 bass boxes, and then as I was saying earlier, if for whatever reason you misplaced the submatch cable, you left it home, whatever, you can there's a door that's on the subwoofer, and you can slide that over just to be able to power that with any IEC cable. And any musician knows, I'm sure, Eliot, you can attest, we all have like hundreds of IEC cables just like in cases. So that's stuff that's just readily available.
That's a great thing. That's great. That's great thinking to have that as a backup. But I love the way the new cable has that spring lock on it. It definitely, that connection feels so secure when you engage it. So inspires confidence.
Yeah, because these are powered subwoofers, we built in a lot of extra features, and we don't have a close-up on the back of the subwoofers, so thus me bringing it towards the camera here. You can see that we've got 2 line-ins with a EQ assignment option optimized for L1, and then just a generic low-pass filter, 2 balanced XLR line-outs with a full range or high-pass filter, EQ out options, and then we have a relative bass level. So One of the advantages of the Pro 32 system is that you can adjust volume of your subwoofer and your array independently. So if you need a little bit more bass, you can access that. If you've got too much for your room, you can just kind of bring it back a little bit. We've also got
a great feature.
Cool. We've also got a phase options here, and cardioid when you're using 2 sub-1s or 2 sub-2s, which is a directional bass. We've got to get you another subwoofer, Eliot, so you can try out the cardioid mode.
Yeah, would love that.
So, and as you can see, the carrying experience, I can still keep it really close to my body here, so my center of gravity remains relatively intact. So I'm carrying a lot of power with very little effort. Same goes with the sub-2. Although we approach 50 pounds, it's still a pretty easy carry from vehicle to venue.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of power in a really slim package. As far as performance goes, with a Pro 32 and a sub-2, we are 128 dB peak, 122 dB continuous, versus 121 dB peak and 118 continuous. 115 dB continuous on a Model 2. Total wattage is 480 for the array, and then 1,000 watts. And then the sub-1 is 480, so that's a 960 or 1480 total system watts for the 32 plus the sub-2. Versus 250 and 250 here with the Model 2 and the B2 base module. Tuning-wise, we can go down to 37 hertz with a sub-2 and 40 hertz with a sub-1, as opposed to 40 hertz with the B2 base module. And then, of course, the exact same I/O panel, which I know we had up on screen for a second, but the Model 2, there we go again. The Model 2 is the same I/O as the 1S, with the exception of the analog 1/4-inch output. And we give you the XLR balanced line out here on the Pro 32. So a fully functional mixer built into the Pro 32, as well as being able to hook up your T4 or T8S.
And I think, Craig, one of the things
accessories.
What I was going to add is one of the things that I think is nice about the I/O is that it's common across the family, right? So Eliot's been using the Pro 32, but tomorrow he could take a Pro 8 and go do a gig, and all of the gear that he would normally plug in would just all seamlessly work. And so that's a nice thing, just this commonality. The app works the same, the I/O is the same, the features and functions are all the same across that whole family.
Yeah, and just curious, obviously you can stack like multiple subs, right? I mean, you could add a sub-1 to a sub-1, and how many can you actually stack together?
We advise a maximum of 2.
2, right?
Yes. Although we've seen photos of folks out there stacking more than 2.
Yeah.
But we say 2.
Yeah. I think, right, 2 would be more than enough.
Yeah, that's an awful lot of bass. And it also coincides with the number of subs that can be powered by a Pro 32.
Right.
That sub-match out port that Craig alluded to earlier, you can connect 2 subs to a single Pro 32 and still have just one thing plugged into the wall.
Right. And would 2 subs get you into the ballpark of a sub-2 in terms of output and frequency response?
The frequency response wouldn't change. It would give you, you just be getting more output. You'd be getting
more output. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And of course, the option to configure that cardioid mode, because you have the one rear firing subwoofer. So for those folks that aren't familiar with the cardioid application, these low frequencies are omnidirectional. So if I'm standing behind my subwoofers, I'm going to hear pretty much the same thing as folks that are standing in front of the subwoofers. When in cardioid mode, I'm essentially negating the rear firing energy by about 10 dB. So it helps just to keep all the energy focused on the dance floor or low frequency feedback off the stage. Helps keep your neighbors in your good graces in outdoor events that spill into the evening hours.
Right.
It's a really and worthy of a webinar all by itself. It's a really good feature, Cardioid Mode. Just one more thing, Craig, I wanted to add about the Pro 32 is the accessories that are available for it. Sub 1 and Sub 2 do come with slip covers. Pro 32 comes with a carry bag for the arrays as well as a carry bag for the power stand. However, we have premium carry cases that will carry the arrays and the power stand in a single bag with a shoulder strap. And we also have roller bags for the Sub 1 and Sub 2, which just help make transport to and from your vehicle back into the venue much easier at the end of the night. So some premium accessories that were not available with our legacy L1 product line.
Great. So,
So that's the family.
yeah, I was going to say, now that we're kind of at the end of the wrap up of the family, I think what we've tried to or attempt to show is that one, each product within the family, one has its own reason for being, but then there's certain key kind of areas that just are common amongst all of them, and that was kind of where the mixer comment came up. And so I'm hoping, like, throughout this conversation, we're able to kind of clearly show the differences of these great legacy products that the L1 Pro family has replaced, because what already existed those products were also great performers, and we've really focused on trying to improve the customer experience in all dimensions. And one of the things that we appreciate is working with fine musicians like yourself, Eliot, because you guys just have all of this this history and experience, and have been in every possible musical situation, ever, from the best of the best to the worst of the worst,
Yeah.
right? So you can
Oh,
get
yeah.
really great perspective of where these products are performing and where they're not working. And because what we like to know as the product team is when something isn't kind of quite there, because that's an opportunity to improve over the development of the product. But I guess, Eliot, a question to you is there anything else maybe that we haven't touched on that you've keyed in on as something that you really just like or appreciate or just enjoy about the new gear, the new L1 Pro products that you've been using?
Well, I mean, again, the most important factor for me has always been sound quality. And there's obviously a lot of choices out there in a portable, sort of line array system. But the Bose for me has always been just the best sounding system, and to me that's kind of where it ends. The portability and all the other features are really great. They make my life and our lives easier when we're using this stuff. But without the sound quality, and the sound quality has just been so consistent. I've been using Bose portable sound systems for almost 10 years now. And, I mean, yeah, my life is my career is kind of all encompassing. I'll play an arena with Hall and Oates, and I'll be in Madison Square Garden one day, and then go play a small venue the next day on my own. But the one thing that is consistent in using these products is the sound quality is there. And for me, I love the company. I love you guys because you're constantly seeking our our real world experience and wanting to know where you can improve these things. So I think you've listened to a lot of people, and you've applied that into these new products.
I'm glad you said that, Eliot. Sometimes, as a pro audio company, we have a very passionate customer base, Bose users that
Yeah.
we love to hear about our products, and we take all those comments very, very seriously.
Yeah.
And sometimes a user may think that we're just sort of in a bubble here at Bose, and we just do what we do because we think we know best, which, as you pointed out, is absolutely not the case. Folks like yourself and
Yeah. And people that I know that also use Bose products basically stay with them, and for the same reason I do. you get that level of consistency and that reliability is something you're going to lean on in these situations. And I've never had a Bose product ever fail on me in any capacity. So, that's an awesome thing. And I can't say that for some other products that I've used. So, I think you have a really loyal, uh, base for your users, and rightfully so.
And I get, oh, go ahead.
Awesome. We love our users, and sorry, Craig. Yeah, we love our users, and we love that people are so passionate and
Yeah.
want to talk about our products. I just wanted to highlight the fact that throughout the entire development process, from day one of the Bose L1 Pro family, we have been engaging our local and national user community to, just talk about what we're thinking and to get their feedback, really. So
Mhm.
from day one, we have users engaged.
That's great. That's really great.
Yeah, so I guess as we kind of get to the end of our conversation, just some questions for Eliot. Like, this past year has been a little tricky for everybody, I would say.
Yeah.
What have you been kind of doing? Like, what have you been able to do musically? And then, like, what is 2021, I guess? What is that looking like for you on the horizon as we're nearing the end of the calendar year? Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I know we're looking at 2021. It's like we're going to all forget about 2020. um, it was a difficult year in a lot of ways. I mean, when it started, the last real big show I did was Madison Square Garden with Hall and Oates back in late February. And then probably like a lot of people, had that shock syndrome of what's going to happen, in the entertainment business as well as many other people. But you move on, and we try to make the best of what's going on in a mostly virtual world. Um, I think I did what a lot of musicians did. We kind of just put our heads down and try to get creative and try to adapt to the situation. And and I think I did that, and I got very, very lucky. I've been able to do a lot of virtual shows for either fans or companies or venues, so that's actually keeping me really, really busy. In this past year, I was able to do, maybe like a dozen or so shows myself, outdoor socially distanced shows. And so it's actually this year's kind of flown by for me. But looking ahead into 2021, of course, Hall and Oates is going to we're start up at some point. But until that, I got a great offer to work with one of my musical heroes again, Todd Rundgren, who I started working with probably back in 2005. He's been on Live from Daryl's House a couple of times, if you've seen the show. And so he's doing a multi-city virtual tour that's going to be produced and done in Chicago. The first show will be, I believe, on Valentine's Day. And I think there's about at least 25 shows booked. So we're going to be in Chicago for almost 2 months straight doing these shows. And it should be an amazing experience. Full production, full band, full everything. And he's kind of taking this whole virtual concert series a little step further and doing a more extensive version of that. So I'm really looking forward, because I'm a huge Todd fan. So
Well,
it'll
yeah,
be awesome.
congrats. That's an amazing gig to have. So I have
Yeah.
a question for maybe the folks that are watching that are, musicians at all different kinds of levels. Like, what advice in the virtual world and in this sort of world that you had to adapt to would you give people that are kind of watching this that maybe are just kind of feel a little stuck, they can't
Yeah.
figure it out, or they don't know how to engage with their fans or in their communities? Like, what would you say? Where's the starting point? How should they think about this?
Well, that's hard. For me, it was a little bit easier, and only because I've been so fortunate to work on, Live from Daryl's House for almost 10 years since it started. So I had probably a little advantage in being sort of comfortable performing for cameras, you know, performing in the situation where there's a room full of musicians, but there's no audience. So it's almost a virtual sort of experience. So I was accustomed to that. Not every musician is. But so I would suggest for musicians just to apply the same amount of creativity that they would apply to their music, but in a virtual presentation. Just get creative because it can be done, and there's a lot of people doing great virtual presentations. So you know, buy the gear that you need and just, you know, test it out, get creative with it. Um, I think it's fun. I have fun with it, and it's a way. You know, when I do a live stream, for instance, I was doing them almost every week when this first started. It was just kind of a way to keep in, not only keep in touch with my fans, but just to have something to focus on, having a presentation to come up and think about, you know, what are the arrangements going to be? What can I do new? How can I challenge myself and keep moving forward? You know, I've encountered a few musicians that have been just like, oh, I can't wait till gigs come back. We all can't wait till live gigs come back, but you know, we have to try to keep moving forward. And this is going to be, I think this is going to be a part of how we do our presentations for a while. Even when live gigs come back, I think we can use what we've learned over the last year and apply them to a virtual presentation when we can't always get to a place, you know, physically. So it can be done.
Yeah, yeah. You actually answered my next question, which was, do you think this will continue after we're through this? And I would agree with you that I think that we'll come out of this, and this will be a new way to connect with fans, and it will be in
Yeah.
some kind of hybrid land for sure. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's going to be a balance of both for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
yeah. Craig, did you have anything else for Eliot?
No, I don't think so. Just appreciate you taking the time to sit with us today,
Oh,
as
my
well as
pleasure.
your invaluable feedback throughout our development and then our beta testing process.
Yeah.
You definitely stepped up to the plate and put our Pro 32 and Sub 1 through the ringer, you know, using it in some real life gigs. So we really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for having me on this, and thank you for making such great products. I really, you know, I appreciate them.
Yeah, thank you for
Awesome.
making the time for us, Eliot, and hopefully the next time we see you, it'll be in the same room, in the same space.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I guess everybody that's kind of joined us, we look forward to seeing your comments. We want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching. And you know, we're just really proud of the new product family and the L1 Pro that we've been able to bring to market. We're super excited when guys like Eliot are actually out there really using them, because it really kind of attests to the fact that these products can actually perform well in real world conditions with true professionals. So again, the L1 Pro family, it's we have the L1 Pro 8 that's been shipping since the beginning of November. The L1 Pro 16 is available, and the Pro 32, along with Sub 1s and Sub 2s, will start to arrive in January. So thank you, everybody, for the support. Thank you, Eliot, for attending. And thank you, Craig Small, for taking us through this great product family that you've been kind of pushing forward over the past couple of years. And I guess with that, we'll say good night, good evening, good morning, no matter where you're watching in the world. And thank you for joining us.